Do you think Brown was trying to accomplish something?
Brown has placed the appeasement of a dictatorial regime above the concerns of Britain's closest ally and continues to undermine the Anglo-American special relationship. It is also highly significant that Brown refused to criticise the actions of Kenny MacAskill, the Scottish Justice Secretary, even though members of his own party have strongly attacked the SNP-led Scottish administration over the issue. The PM's denials over any British government involvement in MacAskill's decision carried an air of desperation against a backdrop of mounting evidence of high-level contacts between the Labour government and Colonel Gaddafi's inner circle. The Prime Minister's spectacularly unconvincing performance will only add to the pressure on Brown to come clean over the exact details of his own discussions with Gaddafi, as well as those between Lord Mandelson and Gaddafi's son Saif. He has done himself no favours at all by refusing to address the three central questions that need to be answered. Did Gordon Brown and senior British government ministers support the freeing of Megrahi? What pressure was applied by the Labour government to secure Megrahi's release by Scottish authorities? And was an agreement struck between London and Tripoli that Megrahi should walk free? The Brown government's lack of transparency on this issue must be challenged in the coming weeks and months, ideally through an independent inquiry. If left unresolved, the Lockerbie bomber scandal will undercut transatlantic intelligence and judicial cooperation and will lead to growing tensions in the Anglo-American alliance, a dangerous course that is distinctly against the British national interest.
Do you think this will hurt our special alliance with the UK?
It is important not to underestimate the damage that is being inflicted on the Anglo-American alliance, the strongest and most important partnership in the world, by the Lockerbie bomber fiasco. The release of a mass-murdering terrorist responsible for the deaths of 180 Americans is viewed by tens of millions in the US as a betrayal by America's closest friend. Brown and his ministers, including Mandelson and Foreign Secretary David Miliband, must come clean over the whole affair, and an inquiry into exactly what transpired is the best way to ensure that happens. This was a shameful day for Scotland and for Britain. Terrorism and the brutal rogue regimes that back them are the biggest winners. This is how wars are lost and great nations decline. Megrahi walks a free man, whisked off by luxury jet to Tripoli, looking forward to a glorious reception in his home country as a returning hero before an adoring crowd of thousands. This is not compassion or smart power. It is a humiliating daylight mugging by our enemies.
Thanks for the report, Niall. So last night, I'm in bed, again, watching too much television. I'm starting to get embarrassed now. The weather's bad, so I have an excuse to stay home and watch television, and I do it, and I shouldn't. Because when the children were young, we didn't have a television. I refused to let them watch TV. I was one of those. They both turned out great. Maybe it helped. But now I find myself watching television at night, and too much of it, mainly movies. In fact, either the History Channel, Military History, the Science Channel, National Geographic, or a movie. So late at night, I'm watching a movie from 1948 that had me captivated for a number of reasons. I don't know the name of it, but it was about an FBI agent who goes undercover into the underworld, pretends to be a criminal, and it was so unbelievably bad that I couldn't stop watching it. You know, and now we walk down the halls of the FBI where J. Edgar Hoover. Remember those movies? The guys all had those Dick Tracy suits. So I'm watching the movie, and I start to see certain things in it. A lot of the characters were from real life. When they went into a gym in Philadelphia where the scenes were shot, they were real boxers training in a gym, which was very interesting to watch. The characters. Where are the men like that? I ask myself, what happened to men that they've all become almost homogenized in this country? When I was a young boy, the men were all like weird looking. Guys had like nasal hair, ear hair. But aside from that, I'm doing that to attract your eyes and ears to what I'm saying to you. The men look different. Now everyone has a homogenized, pasteurized, aluminumized look. I don't understand what happened to my country. Men were very unique. I'm saying, you take a gym full of white men, they all look different. They had weird faces. Now everyone has the same kind of like idiotic grin. But anyway, so the movie's about an FBI agent who goes undercover and gets into the rackets, whatever, in order to bust him. So, you know, I just saw the movie with Jack Nicholson. What is it called? The Untouchables? I forget. The Untouched. I don't even remember the movie's name. They will help me out. The Departed. And it was excellent. I really liked Nicholson. I liked DiCaprio. I liked Matt Damon. They were all good in the movie, and the movie was very captivating. But a good portion of the plot was taken directly from this 1948 slap them together and, throw it out there movie. Now, that's not why I'm talking about it. In the movie, there's a quick scene about them wanting a fighter who looks like he's going to be the favorite to take a fall for money. Take a dive, in other words. In other words, he's the favorite, and they say to him, if you go down in the third round, we'll make a lot of money because you're the favorite. And in all those movies from the 45 era up until about when the hippie scum took over the movie business, after the hippie communist scum from New York City took over the movie business, most of the movies were about temptations and honor. A fighter was said, you take a dive and you'll make a lot of money, and it was the tension of the fighter saying, no, I have honor. I will not take a dive. And what usually happened to him is he got beaten up or killed. Or you go back to On the Waterfront with Marlon Brando, that great movie. What was that all about? That was about honor. He was unwilling to take a dive, in other words, and he died for it. So the movies were always about the temptations and the honor of the man who would not accept the temptation for money, for the quick buck. That's what the tension was. That's what the storyline was. That's what America grew up on. That's what America became strong on. Now you got Murdoch, who's into the quick buck, and so he'll take the temptation for a higher rating and a quicker buck. No honor. Do you understand what I'm saying to you or not? How a society can be formed by its art, and you can't condemn every movie ever made. That would be absurd. Some are good, some are bad, some are indifferent. Some are funny, some are not funny, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm getting at is there were movies about morality in the days that I grew up. For example, crime never paid. You never could see the bad guy win in a movie when I grew up. My father taught me that. He said, you notice, Michael, every movie the bad guy gets caught in the end. Now we know that's nonsense. All you got to do is look at the U.S. Senate. We understand that. But in those days, you were conditioned by your movie to realize you'd get caught in the end. So I asked my father, why is it? He said, well, the FBI worked out something with Hollywood where Hollywood agreed never to show the bad guy winning because they didn't want to encourage people to go into that line of work. Now, compare that to the movies being produced now by the hippie pothead scum from hell in the movie business today, where the bad guy is always shown to win and the straight guy is shown to be a moron. Play On the Waterfront. Then I'll go back.
Charlie, it was you. You remember that night in the garden? You came down my dressing room and said, kid, this ain't your night. We're going for the price on Wilson. You remember that? This ain't your night. My night, I could have taken Wilson apart. So what happens? He gets the title shot outdoors in a ballpark, and what do I get? A one-way ticket to Palookaville. You was my brother, Charlie. You should have looked out for me a little bit. You should have taken care of me just a little bit so I wouldn't have to take them dives for the short-end money.
Well, I had some bets down for you. You saw some money.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody. Instead of a bum, which is what I am. Let's face it.
All right, we got the picture. Get out the Kleenex. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody instead of a bum. Now, what you have today are people who are bums, who have no class, who think they're somebody. You get the picture? Do you understand how hard the job is that I do to try to put everything into context? It's almost impossible. When you have such power that they can turn upside down, straight up, and you don't even know which way is up anymore, and you don't know what honor is anymore. But I hope you understood what I'm telling you, that the movies in those days were always about a hero being tempted to take a dive for money, for example, and not taking it, and paying the consequences. He didn't wind up with an award for it. Today, as I am trying to tell you, there is no class. They're nobodies pretending to be somebody simply because they took a quick buck. This is the Savage Nation. I'll be back.
Savage. Hi, it's Roger Hitchcock. Join me evenings starting at 7, right after Savage on Talk 910 KNEW.
2004 CIA report detailing abusive interrogation techniques, including torture against prisoners in U.S. custody.